Welcome y'all to Ask Tumbleweed, where we strive to dig into the history of America's Old West for perspectives on today's issues. Today's question comes from LW in Charleston, South Carolina. LW asks, Tumbleweed, how would education in the Old West stack up against today's education system? Well, LW, folks living on the western frontier in, say, the mid-1850s were far more illiterate than we might be led to believe. There was a lot of homeschooling going on, but a measure of the civilized status of towns was whether it had a schoolhouse. Also, many who settled west had been educated back east. They were taught the basics of reading, writing, and arithmetic. Socio-political issues of things like race and gender simply had no place, much like today, no reason to be taught. My own great-great-great-grandfather, John Donne, immigrated from Ireland in 1851 and homesteaded near Corpus Christi, Texas. He was a serious and religious-minded man who brought with him quite an impressive library for the time, including, of course, the Holy Bible, but 3 volumes of the Lives of the Saints, Lives of the Irish Saints and Martyrs, Geoffrey Keating's History of Ireland, Clareton's History of Ireland, A History of the Christian Church, lectures and sermons by Father Burke titled Instructions for Youth, Hume's History of England, Trials of a Mind, Moore's Life of Lord Edward Fitzgerald, Washington and His Generals, A Bible History, and Cobbett's History of the Reformation. Those books were passed liberally among his 9 sons and daughters here in America. He even sent some of his children to gain a more formal education at a Catholic school in San Antonio, and his concern for education was such that he generously donated land to the local parish near Corpus for a school. Well, Donne's concern for education was not uncommon. As folks who study the history of the Old West learn of the literacy of so many of those with the grit and determination to carve lives from the vast frontier. It's notable that the only surviving signs of civilization that survives today's ghost town of Nueces Town, Texas, are the cemetery and the one-room schoolhouse. The successes of the likes of Sam Houston, Mirabeau Lamar, Rip Ford, and more were rooted in education. That's not to say everyone was literate, as there was widespread illiteracy among the backwoods of the Deep South and among the slaves. Of course, the frontiersmen of the Old West, well, the trappers, they didn't claim much reason for book learning. How does that stack up to today? Well, as a percentage of the population, well, there are likely just as many undereducated people today, and debate rages as to how many folks that graduated from school have truly received an education. Back in the Old West, it was deemed far more important to raise families, grow food and feed, and to raise livestock than to perform calculus and trigonometry. Obviously, Tumbleweed doesn't mind tackling a potentially thorny issue, so you're encouraged to submit your questions to asktumbleweed@gmail.com. Y'all might enjoy my Tumbleweed Sagas novels, in which protagonist Texas Ranger Luke Dunn must often deal with the cultural issues and prejudices of the mid-1800s while delivering justice. I've woven some morally principled messages through the pages of my 5 sagas to date, as published by Defiance Press and Publishing. They are available online in print, e-audio, and ebook from Amazon, Barnes & Noble, and most other popular online booksellers. I invite you to buy copies of Nueces Justice, Nueces Reprise, Nueces Deceit, Nueces Blood, and Nueces Grit today. Shucks, you might even further your education. Visit my posts on Facebook at Tumbleweed Sagas and at Ask Tumbleweed, and do check my website at tumbleweed.me. If you'd like to learn more of life, including education in and on the frontier, I invite you to buy Nicholas Dunn, The Making of a Texas Legend. Meanwhile, y'all do take care.